1 mile new to go. The courtroom went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the words Usher Raymond spoke shook every single person in that room to their core. He wasn't performing. He wasn't dancing. He wasn't smiling. This time, he was trembling. With his hand gripping the witness stand, Usher looked straight ahead and said 6 words that no one, not the press, not the fans, not even the judge could have expected. He told me to keep quiet. But quiet about what? And why now? Why, after decades of silence, did one of America's most beloved R&B icons choose this moment to speak under oath about a secret buried in his past? A secret that points straight to Sean Diddy Combs. To understand how we got here, we need to go back, way back, long before platinum records, long before Vegas residencies. Back to when Usher was just 13 years old. The year was 1992. A shy, gifted boy from Chattanooga, Tennessee, had just signed with LaFace Records. He was barely old enough to shave, but already drawing comparisons to the biggest stars of the time. It was then, as many former insiders now allege, that Diddy, already a powerful force in the music world, took an unusual interest in the boy. At the time, Diddy was working with Uptown Records and had just helped launch Mary J. Blige. He was ambitious, ruthless, and according to multiple whispers within the industry, extremely controlling. Usher was sent to live with him temporarily. On paper, it sounded like an amazing mentorship. Who better to guide a rising star than Diddy himself? But what really happened in that penthouse apartment in New York City has remained a mystery until now. Under oath, Usher's voice cracked as he spoke about those days. "I thought he was helping me," he said, "but I wasn't ready for that kind of environment. I wasn't ready for what I saw." At this point, the judge leaned in. The courtroom reporter stopped typing, and the prosecution asked, "What did you see, Mr. Raymond?" Usher hesitated. He looked down, took a breath, then, slowly, he began to speak. "There were things, people, parties I wasn't supposed to see. Things I couldn't unsee." That one sentence, just that, was enough to trigger murmurs across social media within minutes. Former employees, stylists, background dancers, they all began tweeting cryptic messages. Finally, he said it. "I've been waiting 20 years to hear this." But this wasn't just about scandal. This wasn't just about tabloids. This was about the loss of innocence. The courtroom was now hanging on every word. The prosecutor continued, "Were you ever coerced, threatened, or told to remain silent?" Usher replied, "Yes, more than once. He told me, 'You want to be famous, right? Then shut your mouth.'" And just like that, the entire narrative around Diddy began to shift. Again, the second day of the testimony was even more intense. Reporters waited outside for hours, buzzing like bees around the courthouse steps. But inside, behind the heavy oak doors, under oath, away from flashing cameras, the truth was beginning to leak like a broken pipe. Usher returned to the stand wearing the same gray suit as the day before. His voice was hoarse, his eyes darker, as if he hadn't slept. "There were rooms," he began, "with no locks, just passwords. Rooms that weren't for music. Rooms with people who weren't artists." He paused. You could feel the tension rising in the air. The prosecution leaned in. "Are you referring to Sean Combs' private residences during the years 1993 to 1995? Usher nodded slowly. "I lived there. I saw everything." That sentence was like gasoline on dry wood. The courtroom held its breath. He continued, "It wasn't just about me. There were other kids younger than me. Some were assistants. Some were just there. No reason, no explanation." At this point, the judge intervened and asked Usher to clarify. But the look on his face said more than any transcript ever could. A mixture of fear, pain, and long-buried trauma. He shook his head and muttered, "We weren't protected." Suddenly, the defense jumped up, objecting, calling the line of questioning irrelevant and inflammatory. But the judge overruled. "Mr. Raymond," he said, "you may proceed." And that's when Usher said something that would later trend worldwide within minutes. "Diddy told me to never speak about what happened during those years. He said, "If you ever want to see a stage again, you'll keep your mouth shut." The crowd gasped. Even the bailiff shifted uncomfortably. At this point, the court introduced corroborating evidence, a journal entry written by Usher at age 15, found years later in storage. One line was underlined 3 times. "I feel like I'm being watched. I can't trust anyone here." Suddenly, everything Usher had said over the years started to make more sense. The songs, the interviews, the subtle references that no one understood at the time. Now they looked like cries for help. The prosecutor asked him, "Why didn't you come forward earlier?" And his answer silenced everyone. "Because I thought I owed him my career. I thought if I told the truth, nobody would believe me. I thought I'd lose everything." His voice cracked again, but he kept going. When you're a teenager and someone that powerful tells you to keep quiet, you believe them, especially when they give you everything and then use it against you. From the back of the courtroom, a former producer who worked with both artists broke down in tears. The energy in the room shifted. This wasn't just a celebrity drama anymore. This was something darker, something systemic, something deeply human. Usher described how deals were made in hotel rooms, how contracts were pushed in front of minors, how fear was disguised as mentorship. "He told me," Usher whispered, "you're gonna be a star, but you gotta be loyal." The implication was chilling. Loyalty, in that world, meant silence. Silence in exchange for fame. Silence in exchange for safety. But silence is what Usher was finally breaking. And it wouldn't end here. As the third day of testimony began, the world was already watching. News stations broadcasted outside the courthouse. Online forums lit up with speculation. Fans and insiders were digging up old interviews, past lyrics, cryptic tweets, anything that might connect the dots. But nothing could prepare them for what came next. Usher stepped back onto the witness stand with a quiet intensity. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at the cameras outside. He looked straight ahead and said one name, Chaz. The room froze. For a moment, it seemed like no one knew what he meant. But then, murmurs started. Chaz, a former bodyguard, a name that had surfaced in past civil suits. Someone who disappeared from the industry nearly a decade ago. Usher continued. He saw everything. He kept a backup, videos, logs, passwords. He told me that if anything ever happened to him, it was all going to be mailed to the press. The prosecution's jaw dropped. The defense immediately objected, demanding that the testimony be stricken as hearsay. But then, the court clerk handed a small sealed envelope to the judge. It had arrived that morning. No return address. Inside was a USB drive and a single note that read, "In case they make me disappear, see." The judge paused, instructed both legal teams to approach, and whispered with them for nearly 10 minutes off record. Then he returned and made an announcement. The content of the drive had been verified by a federal tech investigator, and what it contained would be reviewed in private chambers. The public didn't get to see what was on that drive, but the energy in the courtroom shifted forever. Usher looked relieved but broken, like a man who had finally dropped a weight he'd been carrying for 30 years. The prosecutor's final question was simple. Why now? Usher took a long breath, and with tears in his eyes he said, "Because I have a son, and I never want him to feel the way I did. If I stay silent, I'm part of it, and I can't do that anymore." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred. No one moved. No one spoke. In that moment, Usher wasn't just a performer. He wasn't a millionaire. He wasn't a superstar. He was a survivor, a voice that had finally broken through the silence. Outside, the crowd erupted when he exited the courthouse. Some clapped. Some wept. Many just stood there, stunned. News outlets scrambled for updates. Diddy's legal team declined to comment. Social media exploded with reactions. "We Believe Usher" started trending worldwide within 20 minutes. Artists, producers, even actors came forward with their own cryptic messages. Some tweeted eyes. Some just posted dates that now seemed connected. But Usher? He didn't go online. He didn't post anything. He got in a black SUV, pulled the door shut, and disappeared into the streets of New York for now. Because this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. The court hasn't ruled. The evidence hasn't been made public. But one thing is clear. The silence is broken, and nothing will ever be the same again.